Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is just gone 11:46, and we're now going to be talking to an absolutely fascinating young lady. And the reason why I've decided to talk with her today is that I think over the past two Ramadans, she has been producing the Ashraf Garda show, as you are well aware, last year and the year before, including this current year. Ashraf Garda runs the Ramadan program right here on Salam Media. And he obviously brings something really unique and special to the Ramadan show. And my guest, who is Raheema Bloomberg, is his content creator. She's also the producer. And I was really intrigued. I kind of asked her, what have you studied for that you're involved in producing the Ashraf Garda show? And the more I heard her talking about the type of work she does, I thought, I need to have you on the show to pick your brains and to get other young people thinking about the opportunities out there. She has a BA in anthropology, and we're going to ask her, where can you go with a degree in anthropology, cultural anthropology? Um, uh, in fact, it's cultural anthropology. You hear about social anthropologists. So I was very intrigued when she said she studied for cultural anthropology. But let's introduce her and let her unpack what she's all about and what she can achieve with a degree in cultural anthropology. Raheema Bloomberg, Salaam Alaikum. Welcome to the program. An absolute pleasure to have you here.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me. And assalamu alaikum to all your listeners. It's weird to be on the other side.
I'm sure. I always hate it. I never like being on the other side, but hey, that's what it's all about, isn't it? So I understand you're very passionate about learning and understanding people. Why did you choose this area of study? And what are you going to get out of it? What type of future can you hope for, apart from South Africa, wherever else in the world you might decide to settle in?
So I kind of fell into it by accident, if that makes sense, as I think a lot of us do with our professions, especially at university. I was always very passionate about engaging with people, communicating with people, and understanding people. Um, and eventually, I think I just really fell in love with the thought and the methodology of anthropology more than anything, just because it was one that's very much focused on acceptance and understanding difference, and instead of conflict, rather finding bridges between people. Um, and so I continued, and eventually I completed my master's degree in anthropology. It wasn't enough, and I needed to get more, I would say, skills. But that was just for me, like personally, with regards to my purpose and how I felt what I needed to kind of go through my purpose in life.
Okay, so anthropology, social, cultural, and whatever other titles fall under the heading of anthropology is really about understanding people, nations, cultures, the traditions, the way and the why they do things the way they do.
Yeah,
How's that going?
that. I would add to
How,
that. I would say it also has to do with understanding knowledge production, which is very much the business of content and marketing. But even just with regards to what I do. So ultimately, anthropology, the term is about studying the human, right? Cultural and social is, I guess you could argue, is very similar in many ways. But ultimately, culture it's a social system. It's the way in which people interact with each other. It's the way in which people understand each other. It's the way in which people live. So cultural anthropology has very much provided me the tools to, I would say, understand people on a macro level, and sometimes very much so on a micro level as well. So not psychology, because it's different, but on a micro level. So understanding power dynamics, relationships between people, how people engage with each other, how people create, respond to, engage, and understand knowledge production. And when I say knowledge production, I mean anything and everything. Whether it's something you read about in a book, or it's something you read about, what you've been taught at university, or in courses after you've qualified, but also what you see on any digital platform. So how people respond and receive information is very much governed by the way in which they have been socialized. So their own
Absolutely.
subjectivities and their own predispositions, the way that they have been, let's say, brought up, the family they come from, the communities they've come from, the socioeconomic backgrounds, the way that their families have been influenced and then have in turn influenced them about how they understand politics around them, the relationships they've had. And sometimes there's a very blurry line between that psychology element and anthropology. And I'm not a psychologist. I have done additional training in mediation, so alternative dispute resolution, and counseling, as well as life coaching. And so I guess I lend those skills to kind of do my work effectively. But yeah, very much culture and social anthropology is about how people understand information, and how they engage with other people. Because when you're engaging with a person, it's through signals, it's through symbols, it's through forms of communication like language, it's through what you're reading about somebody, the representation of somebody on, let's say, Instagram, for example. And I think that's a very current conversation to have. But yeah, I hope that
Now,
answers it.
you've mentioned two or three times during the interview that you're not a psychologist. But as you were speaking, I kind of was thinking it's very closely aligned to psychology because it's about the understanding of people, the emotional state, the background, why they react or respond the way they do. So it's about understanding people. And people like yourself who's done studied cultural and social anthropology are key in top corporate companies, obviously, if they want things to run smoothly. We know that the world has truly been, the world is globalized in a sense that we have migration, all sorts of migrations happening, immigrations, migrations, emigrations. People are on the move all of the time. And you need to understand people, and you need to understand yourself as well to be able to fit in any anywhere, anytime, anywhere in the world at all, and be relevant. So it's really about being relevant, to understand and to be understood. That's the one part, obviously. You are also crucial. Your type of mind or your type of work is crucial in marketing because you need to understand your audience or your client, because if you want to market certain items to them, you need to understand their thinking. Otherwise, you're not going to sell that item to them, be it a can of baked beans, soap powder, or a big ticket item. If you don't, marketers need to have this information, or they need to have a creature like yourself on board to direct them, to be able to obviously market to the masses and be able to get that revenue coming in, right?
Yeah. So firstly, I like that term creature. I've never termed myself a creature. I think I might coin myself as the anthropologist creature. But yes, 100%. So fundamentally, there's different ways you can apply anthropology, right? Anthropology is a nice general understanding of people, and then you get different avenues in which you can then focus. The way I have applied anthropology is through content creation, it's through social media management, it's through life coaching, and business strategy, but even just in general, strategy in general, right? Like, so whether you're in a business, or let's speak to specifically the can of baked beans that you'd like to sell, there's a layered approach that we need to utilize when we are understanding our market, right? This is in a situation where you're trying to sell product A to demographic A. They come from certain socioeconomic backgrounds. They have various demographic information that either A allows them or wills them to buy a product. And that's very much where I kind of fit in. Is I try to understand what those demographic factors are, what those socioeconomic and socio-political factors are that's going to either drive them or encourage them towards buying that product, and understand the reasons for it, so that as a marketer, you can identify, how to hook your client, how to engage your client and hold them. The balance, however, is the relevance and authenticity. That's the balance. Being relevant and authentic is that's the like if you can find the sweet spot of that, that's the ideal scenario. So and that's for businesses generally. And I think what we're seeing now is a huge move towards, because what my specialty is qualitative data analysis. So anything that is the written word, the spoken word, any type of communication that is that basically provides insight and meaning to quantitative information. So just to take a step back, quantitative data analysis basically provides you with information or data that tells you about a specific thing. It tells you, okay, in South Africa, we've got these many people. And of these many people, they buy this product. Cool, we know that. The why, the how, and the reasons for is really what I do. I qualitatively seek to understand why this many people in South Africa choose to buy this or choose not to buy. What about the situation? Their situation allows them or provides them with a context in order to purchase that item or not purchase that item. In the same way, I would apply it within an ADR or mediation setting, whereby when I'm engaging with two different people or a single person, understanding their social context and how that social context then I would say allows for or suggests them to make a certain decision or to choose a certain life path is very much on the how and the why. So I'm in the business of understanding the how and the why. I think that's
And
one.
I would love to sit here for the rest of the day picking your brain because I find this absolutely fascinating. My final question then to you is, obviously you are in the right space as far as producing the show, the Ashraf Garda show. How did you get involved in the production of the show? And I might also add that I thoroughly enjoy the content on the Ashraf Garda show. So
Thank
good
you.
on you guys.
Thank you. That's a huge compliment, and I'll tell the rest of the team because I think it's a team effort. Um,
Absolutely.
so I I was approached by Salam Media to produce the Ashraf Garda show. I had never produced before. I did the Ashraf Garda show. Ultimately, it's the same skills required, because my core competency is research and qualitative data. Applying it within the space of production and content creation, it's the same skills, it's the same tools that's needed, and so I utilize those. um, and Ashraf is a phenomenal host. He's a veteran in the space. He's really good at what he does, and I've been so lucky and blessed to have all the direction and all the education and all the knowledge. Ponti, our COO at Salam Media, who also assists me with production, I've learned a lot from him. And in terms of content itself, what's great is everything I've learned over the years since I've started my anthropology pathway to now has allowed me to, when we're deciding on a piece of content for Salam Media listeners, there's a whole layered approach we go through. We ask various questions in order to decide, right, is the story good enough? Is it going to appeal to our listeners? Is it information that our listeners can learn from? From a broader perspective, we ask the question, is this type of information that we should be educating people about, which is really fun. That's the fun bit, is educating people about what's going on in the world. And, you know, creating that narrative and providing a narrative that is slightly different to other radio stations, I think has been always one of the best parts for me as a producer, is to say, there's all this information running around in the world. What's relevant and what's authentic and what's important is the way in which we understand and interpret, and how we take that insight on into our lives and continue. And so being a part of that, even on a very small basis, for me is a huge blessing, and it definitely speaks to the purpose that I've strived for in my life. And so that for me is the most special. But yeah, I was approached by them, um, I guess they liked what I did, and that's why I'm here again this year. But it seems like listeners do too, because we got quite great feedback and engagement on the Ashraf Garda show. And then there's obviously Ashraf Garda. So
Absolutely wonderful. I do hope you become a permanent fixture here at Salam Media, because undoubtedly you will truly add high value. Lovely talking to you. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, Rahima, but thoroughly enjoyed the little chat. Thank you indeed, and go well. Salaam alaikum to you.
walaikum salam. Thank you to you and your listeners.
That was Raheema Bloomberg. She, as you heard, is a cultural anthropologist, and she's also involved here at Salam Media. She is a content creator, and she's also a producer for the Ashraf Garda show. This has been going on for the past 3 or 4 years, every Ramadan. Ashraf joined Salam Media, and he runs the Ramadan show. And as I said right at the outset, it's really a very, very interesting show to follow. And of course, Ashraf needs no introduction. He joins us once a year from a mainstream media space. So absolutely wonderful chatting to Raheema there. It is exactly 2 after 12 o'clock. We will be back in a minute or two with further interviews right here on the Mid Morning Show.